equivalent?
No.
I've not. I've used Hangouts before, which I think was the precursor to it.
Yeah.
We
We are
used to-
now streaming, so be careful what you say.
the very first remote position I ever worked was at Google. Well, it was at a startup that got acquired by Google, and we were a 100% Google shop, and so we used Hangouts for meetings like this every day. So.
Yeah. But it didn't do. They changed the design of it so that it could do multiple screens and all of that stuff that originally it wasn't able to do, right?
Yeah, I think they added some functionality for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Phyllis, you're back to being the host now.
Okay.
Here we go.
All right. I should be on.
You are.
Okay. There we go.
There's your face.
Okay.
And there she is.
Hey, guys.
Hi there.
Hello.
We are live, folks. We are already live, so be aware.
Not really.
It said YouTube is streaming.
Yeah, we're streaming to YouTube right now.
Well,
Okay.
So we should go ahead and broadcast too, so
Okay.
that we're
so then we
not
can
in
let
the
it to
practice.
then when I do this. You ready?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll start at 7:30.
Okay.
We don't do virtual Pledge of Allegiance anymore, Bill.
No, too difficult. I know in their hearts, everyone's saying it anyway. Do you think it would be helpful to do?
No.
Yeah, no?
We don't have a flag. We don't have a flag to look at together. So I guess,
We'd all be looking in different directions.
yeah.
I can picture the flag in my mind.
Nice.
I'll pledge to that.
Unless we did a PowerPoint slide, Amanda, with the flag projected, then we could do it. But if we don't have a flag.
All right, it's 7:30. We can get started with the meeting. Welcome to the Clifton Town Council special meeting. This is an electronic meeting being conducted by Zoom in accordance with the requirements that have been adopted by the state legislature and then adopted by resolution by the town of Clifton. As set forth on the agenda that applied during the continuation of the pandemic. When the pandemic is over, we'll go back to in-person meetings, but for now, it's not viable. So we're holding our meetings electronically as is permitted by law. And we're allowing people to, any members of the public that want to watch the meeting, to obtain a URL link, and also anyone who wants to watch, we're streaming on YouTube as well. So making sure that the public has access to the meeting, and in addition, offering the opportunity for anyone who wishes to make citizens remarks to do so. And we've had, I think, 6 people register in accordance with the rules set forth to sign up to speak. And each of those individuals will be given 3 minutes to speak. And this particular meeting is not one of our regularly scheduled meetings. Our regularly scheduled meetings are every Tuesday, or the first Tuesday of every month, unless something comes up like it's election day, in which case we might move it. But under our charter, and I think under our ordinance, our regularly scheduled meeting is the first Tuesday of every month. Where things come up and need to be done, outside of that, we have the authority to call other types of meetings. One of those is called a special meeting. In essence, a special meeting is like a regular meeting, except not held at the regular time, the first Tuesday of each month. So if it's at some other time and different from the regular meeting, which we will be having this coming August 4th. If it's other than that, it's a special meeting. It still requires notice, 3 days notice, which has been duly given in this case. So that's what a special meeting is, but a special meeting is not an open agenda with a whole bunch of different items like we have at a regular meeting, but rather very specific. In this case, the purpose of this meeting is the council received a letter from the Virginia Department of Transportation on July 14th. I think it was actually received a little later than that, but it's dated July 14th, saying that the Virginia Department of Transportation directed the town to apply for a land use permit with regard to the banner, and to do so within 14 calendar days, so by July 28th. Since our regularly scheduled meeting was not until August 4th, after that date, we called a special meeting so the council could decide how to address that VDOT letter directing the town to take a certain action by a certain date, and also the banner that we had put up when it was put up was expressly stated to be temporary for no more than 60 days. There are many, many reasons why. One is our typical policy is 21 days. VDOT informed us, unbeknownst to us, they have a 30-day policy, so can't be forever. And in addition, under our ordinance, any sort of permanent signage requires approval by the Architecture Review Board, and a sign like this that would go up permanently would require that. And I think it wouldn't be hard by inspection to say that a sign of this size and magnitude would not meet that requirement for a permanent sign. So it was never intended to be permanent, could not be permanent, was intended to be for no more than 60 days, being August 10th. And therefore, the other thing we're going to talk about on this call was the schedule to take the banner down. We knew it was going to come down, and to make sure it was no surprise to anyone when it did come down, and people didn't go, oh my gosh, they're taking it down, but rather it was always intended to be the case, and always intended to be the case that it was the start of a dialogue, and not unto itself some sort of separate forever kind of action. So that's why we're having a special meeting, and that's what the subject of the meeting is on the agenda, and we had to put it out before. In between now and then, obviously the banner was stolen early Monday morning between 2 and 5 a.m. And we know it's before 5 a.m. because a citizen was walking his dog and saw the banner wasn't there and let me know about it. Just so everybody knows, a police report was filed by the town with the police, and we've got a case number. They're working it. I don't know what they'll find. The banner was ripped down by somebody who didn't know anything about how to put it up. The mechanism to hang it was somewhat trashed and thrown in the ditch. We've been able to retrieve what's left of the mechanism, and I believe Council Member Patrick Klein is going to be working on that to figure out how to put that back in working order. And there was a rumor started by someone that VDOT was responsible for taking the banner down, which I found surprising, but I actually checked. I had multiple calls with VDOT who confirmed for me that this is not VDOT's action. And there's several reasons. One, they said, first of all, we sent you a letter saying you had 14 days to do something. We wouldn't take any action of any sort until after that letter's time had run by July 28th. So it wouldn't have happened because of that. If it did happen, we wouldn't do it in the middle of the night. We'd do it during the day with notice, with people who knew what they were doing to make sure everything was safe if we did it. And that was not something we were doing. So not VDOT, and it's important that we let people know that. So not VDOT, police report filed, no banner as of Monday. That's where we are right now. So that probably changes the tenor of the discussion to some extent, but we'll get to that. The first thing, as we do in our meetings, is to offer citizens the opportunity to make citizens remarks. And we have that at the beginning before we talk about what we're going to do, because it makes more sense to be informed by it rather than to do whatever we're going to do and then hear about it. So it's at the beginning of this particular meeting, and there are, as I understand it, 6 speakers. I don't have a list. I have a list that is now appearing. The first speaker is Peter Noonan. If you can unmute his microphone, and Peter, if you'd like to speak.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor Holloway and Town Council. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Peter Noonan, and I live at 12635 Chapel Road, and I'm one of your constituents. I'm speaking tonight about 2 items. First is the VDOT culvert improvements and paving in and or near and around our house, and second about the town banner. Over the past couple of weeks, VDOT has been working on road improvements, and I just wanted to say how much I was appreciative of their efforts. Water Street is way better than it was before, and additionally, I wanted to thank VDOT particularly for coming out and dredging the culvert in front of our home. For the past 10 years or so, it's been filled with standing water and in need of improvement. More specifically tonight, though, I did want to take a chance to say thank you to Chase Hinderstein for his support. While he's not on the council anymore, he was certainly instrumental in making the right connections to help us get the work done. With respect to the town banner, and I appreciate the conversation tonight and the banner, "Welcome to Clifton, where Black Lives Matter." I want to start, of course, with my astonishment, my sadness, and absolute disgust about the banner being torn down under the cover of darkness a few nights ago. This, in my opinion, is precisely why we're flying the banner in the first place, to support our friends, colleagues, commuters, first responders, and the like that are all people of color in an effort to make our town more welcoming. We were making a public statement that we as a community believe that actors such as those who tore down the banner should be rooted out, called out for, and have charges pressed against them. These are the very actions that are the antithesis of our core values in Clifton, as stated by the Clifton Creed. It's this kind of racism, in my opinion, that is the most insidious. That which lurks in darkness and serves to scare communities by their terrorist actions. It is my hope and deep desire that this council, adopt a resolution tonight to hang a new banner for another 60 days that reaffirms our community's beliefs, and your 6-0 vote that in Clifton, Black Lives Matter. Anything short of that is letting the unseen cowardice and racism win. Lastly, as a matter of the poles that the banners hang on, I find it devastating that for the last 40 years or so, we've been hanging banners for a variety of purposes, from a wine festival to the Clifton Day to a film festival. And until now, this banner has not been a problem, and any banner hanging hasn't been a problem. It's come to the community's attention that someone called VDOT and asked them to review the conditions of the banner hanging in the town, and further understand that this is part of the agenda tonight. So thank you for framing that out. I want to be clear in my comments that whomever called VDOT about the polls is, in my opinion, as racist as those who stole the banner, and should absolutely be ashamed of themselves. The identity of those who stole the banner will come out, as well as the person who called VDOT. In fact, we have filed a Virginia Freedom of Information Act request to determine the communications between VDOT and those in conversation about the banner. And when it does, I expect and hope that the council will take appropriate action. But for now, I really hope that the town council tonight decides to purchase a new banner, hang it for 60 more days, and make the residents you heard from 2 weeks ago proud of you for not letting these thieves, these cowards, and these racists win. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Graham Milne.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, gotcha.
Hey guys, I don't have a massive amount to say other than obviously I was personally very disappointed with what happened the other day with the banner coming down. I wanted to reiterate that a lot of very good things have started to happen as a direct response to the sign and the talk that's been going on in town. And a number of those things have started to lead to positive events. For one, I have noticed, and this is a minor thing, but I have noticed a lot more Black families visiting town, which I appreciate, and I think that's good. It shows that they are feeling more welcome. They're interested in what's going on with the sign and everything. We have a racial equity group that has become very vibrant. We've got a quite considerable number of members. We're starting to work on some projects, including understanding and giving understanding to the community of the history of this town, which is very interesting and as many of us now know, tied up to freed Black slaves. The racial equity group has reached out to the Second Baptist Church, which is a predominantly Black church, and asked them if they can give us input from their perspective. And from that, we have found that there are some major issues that might affect the future of the church. And through that connection, now I know that there are people in town, and this may come out more later, but there are people in town that are working to help save the congregation and the church, or from the church from disappearing. And there are a number of other exciting things going on. We've also reached out to the captain of the Sully Police Station, and Mayor Holloway and Captain Bileb had a Zoom conference recently in which Mayor Holloway explained the purpose of the banner, that we are not supporting any one organization and specifically not directly supporting Black Lives Matter, but we stand for the Black Lives Matter movement, which is supporting racial equity. And Captain Beleb totally understood this. He totally got it. He knew about the sign. He said that he never thought anything different. None of the police think anything different. And he gave his full verbal support for what we are doing. So there are a number of things that are happening, and there will be more to come. And I think the sign has led to some very positive steps. I strongly urge you to give a full vote, 6-0, to put the sign back up. I don't know if it should go up for another 60 days. That's not my decision. Personally, I think we should put it back up for the length of time we said we were going to put it up for originally, and then bring it down. But that's totally up to you. I just want to make sure it goes back up. That's my request to the town council. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Rachel Howell.
Hi, Town Council. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. For the record, I live at 6700 Newman Road, and I want to thank everybody who's spoken before me for your eloquent words. I don't have anything as eloquent to say, but I just wanted to speak again to the banner and replacement of it and say that I am firmly support replacing the banner. I am ambivalent on whether it goes up for the remainder of the time or a new term. But I think that we need to make a statement that when you do criminal activities under cloak of darkness and things that you do those things because you're trying to intimidate people, and you're doing something that you would be ashamed to put your name on. And I think the town needs to send a strong message that anonymous intimidation and illegal activity won't be tolerated, and that we will stand up for what is right in the local community and make people feel welcome, and say that intimidation and racism has no place here. And I think that if we don't send that message, then it's as if we agree to it, we've accepted it, and we might as well join the people who think that the banner is wrong. We have to make a statement on it, and I firmly support funding it. I'm happy to help fund it, and I'm happy to help raise funds for it, or do any legwork that needs to be done in order to replace the banner. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Steve Jones.
Hello. So I too am in support of putting the banner back up. I think it should go up for to make up for lost time. It should go up for a longer period of time, maybe sort of a penalty phase, if you want to call it that, to penalize the people that tore it down. I also want to remind people of the parable of the lost sheep, where when the shepherd had 100 sheep, one goes missing, and he goes out and searches for the one, and the 99 go, "What about me?" And the shepherd says, the one is in danger. Well, in this case, Black lives are the one, and we should be concerned about them and not concerned that all lives matter, because we already know that the rest of us are fine. And I'm also a trustee of the Primitive Baptist Church and have many friends that in the Second Baptist, and they are very proud and happy to see that sign. And as members of our community, we should be thankful that we have the opportunity to make them happy. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Lynn Garvey Hodge.
Good evening. Can I be heard all right? Okay, wonderful. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you this evening. This is really quite an honor. As many of you know, I have lived in the town of Clifton. I have lived outside of Clifton and of the town of Clifton, and I'm here as a Fairfax County History Commissioner and also as a member of the Clifton Social Justice Committee. I have been involved in town events for Clifton for many years, and most recently with the Social Justice Committee, I've had the opportunity to reach out to local descendants of both the Beckwith and Harris families. It has been an honor to do so. I have experienced warm receptions and a very strong interest in wanting to engage with the citizens of the town of Clifton and to honor their respective heritages. It has been both a joy and given me a sense of goodwill to be a participant and a visitor to the town. The history of the town is a vital reflection from my perspective of American history, even including what is happening in our country today. My heart was most recently touched by the town's collective hospitality and displaying the Welcome to Clifton Where Black Lives Matter banner. For in that one decision, shown our town culture at our best. It is reflective of the hospitality, openness, and inclusiveness I have come to expect of Clifton citizenry. And it was with a crushed spirit that I reacted to the news when it was revealed earlier this week that the banner had been taken down and stolen. I stand with the decision to place the banner as a welcome beacon to strangers and friends, and respectfully request that it be replaced and left in place perhaps until Labor Day, barring any other needs to advertise a town event. Thank you for your time, your abundance of goodwill in moving forward, and in particular, the extra efforts the town council members have made to represent us as the warm and inclusive community we have been and will continue to be.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jerry Yantis.
Okay, can you hear me? My name is Jerry Yantis at 12639 Water Street, Clifton. Thank you for letting me speak. I just had a quick comment, just more in terms of the meetings. If there may be a way to make it easier. Once upon a time, before this COVID mess, we were able to walk into any town council meeting and be able to raise our hand and speak. And obviously it's a little more difficult these days. And if for some reason we don't get the notice, then we're locked out from being able to have that opportunity. Obviously, a small town, it's a little easier to manage than Fairfax County and so forth. But also it sounds like the banner has done some good things, which is great. And then whatever the town council decides to do in terms of length of time, I may want to propose another banner to deal with some of the other extreme conditions going on in this country today. So, we can do all our small part here. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's our list of speakers, so we can move to council discussion. One thing I'd like to point out, I just got an email from someone who's a longtime town resident, said they weren't aware that the meeting was going on, and they don't know about any of the meetings the town has. And I'd like to encourage anyone who wants to be on the town email list to let the clerk know that you'd like to be so. It's kind of like asking whoever's not in the meeting, please raise their hand. So I get that everybody here kind of understands that there was a meeting, but let anyone know. We can only let people know if they tell us they want to know. And it's certainly on the website and put up in the post office and that sort of thing as required. But we want everybody to know about the meetings when they're going on. And if you'll provide your email address to the clerk, to Amanda, she'll add it to the list, so you'll be informed of when meetings are going on. And I so informed that person, and they'll also get the information like Jerry was talking about if you want to speak, to register. And so that Jerry's aware, one of the real limitations of these electronic meetings like Zoom is how you are able to control who's speaking and not speaking. So the idea of people photobombing electronic meetings, so that if you have people register to speak, you know who's going to speak. And by the way, that's how normal governmental meetings work. But it means people have to take that action in advance. And it's clearly set out on the email that Amanda sends out, and allows us to have an orderly meeting, whether there's 6 people or 600 people, doesn't matter to me, that are speaking. And who's speaking and in what order are they speaking, so we can run an orderly meeting. Understand it's far less flexible than our public meetings, where we can be a little looser on it, but it's just one of the limitations of an electronic meeting. So everybody look out for those. Again, we have a regular meeting first Tuesday of every month. If you haven't heard about the agenda, please ask me or the clerk. It comes out. The harder part is when we have these non-regular meetings, like special meetings, which we're forced to do because we have something like the VDOT letter requiring us to take action within a period of time that falls in between meetings. So the only way we can respond is to have a special meeting. These are pretty rare, but maybe it's a COVID thing. I don't know, but it seems like it's happening more than I think we'd otherwise like it to happen now. And hopefully we can get back to normal course of business. So with that, council discussion about what we had on here was application for the VDOT land use permit and schedule to take down the banner. And we have the additional facts, of course, that have come up. So if anyone on the council would like to address any of that.
All right, who's going to jump first? I'll jump first. Let's start. I would suggest, first of all, that we separate two issues. One is the license request by VDOT, and the other is what we do with regard to the banner, both in terms of the original question of taking it down and the subsequent forced upon us issue of what do we do now that somebody has stolen it. And so I'm going to restrict my comments at first just to the issue of VDOT. I do not think that VDOT is correct in demanding a land use license or permit for us to put up the sign that we have put up in that location for more than 3 decades. We have been putting these signs up. VDOT has been aware of it for more than 3 decades. It is not a safety issue. They have acknowledged that. And the pure reason that this issue came up was that somebody tried to find a mechanism because of a specific thing that was put on a sign. That's not the purpose of VDOT. Indeed, I think if VDOT did have the authority to censor signs, they wouldn't censor this one. We would get a license, but I don't think it's their authority in the first place. I think the town has the right to put these signs up, has always had the right to put these signs up, does put these signs up. And I don't think, I was going to suggest before this whole situation changed, that we simply respond as we should in a civil way with VDOT. We're not having a fight with VDOT. That we question the necessity for this type of license, that we do not think it is correct, that our legal counsel has been looking at that question, that other towns put up their signs without VDOT authorization, and that we were going to have a meeting on the 4th, it was the 4th or the 5th, whenever Tuesday of the meeting is, and that we would discuss it at that time and hopefully get back to them for a discussion of the legal correctness of saying that we needed a land use permit. I'm totally against that for another reason, and that is we have numerous organizations in town that have been putting signs through a process and an approval by the town council for decades. We don't charge them $100 fees. We don't have additional charges that the land use licenses would require.
Bond requirements, et cetera.
Yeah, we don't have major filing requirements. And this has been done with all of the organizations in Clifton for years and years and years. And should we now accede to this sudden idea that VDOT, you have to file a land use permit to get the sign up with VDOT, we would be hurting every organization in Clifton. And I'm totally opposed to it. And therefore, I don't think we should create any precedent of filing a license. I think we should respond. I think we should be civil. And I think we should say, we have to sit down, our attorneys and your attorneys have to sit down because we don't think this is correct. We have been doing this for 30 years. There is an established precedent and we want to continue that precedent.
I share those concerns, Steve. And as you said, prior to the sign being taken down, you know, my thought was we send a communication to VDOT with, you know, we approved hanging the banner for this period of time. It'll be removed, you know, on or about this date. We hope that meets with your satisfaction.
Well, it was going to be removed within 10 days of the town council meeting in the first place. So
exactly,
I mean,
exactly.
We couldn't have gotten even through the process of a land use permit before we had already said the sign was going to be taken down.
exactly.
The issue is not that sign with regard to VDOT.
I
The
agree.
issue with VDOT is the precedent of saying we have to have
Yeah.
land use permits for all signs.
No, I'm totally against the town submitting to their presumed authority when we've had our own authority to hang banners for over 3 decades, as you've said. So those are my concerns as well.
I just want to interject. It's not just a process. It's actually written into our code,
Yep.
into our own town code. It is law about the process that we went through and that we have for our banners. So it's not just that we've done it for 30 years. We have this law written, and we have the ability to follow that law, enforce that law, change that law should we need to. But it is a law. So I agree with Steve, Daryl, that we need to pursue, with VDOT, what our legal standing is, being that it's written in our code, and not just succumb to submit a $100 application fee. I mean, I can just imagine the spaghetti dinner at the church, and the 5K race and Clifton Day and everything else that goes up there. So this is a terrible precedence to set if we go down that route.
I agree. The issue needs to be put to rest with VDOT, and the town needs to retain its existing authority to hang banners.
Well, let me ask you a question. So I think the town council knows that town code does not supersede state law.
Okay.
State law, which VDOT is a state organization, clearly on their website has a regulation over their jurisdiction, which is Main Street. So are we saying we don't observe VDOT's regulation and jurisdiction over a state street? Or is the comments we should work with VDOT to try to gain back permission to hang banners as we've done before?
You can, it seems to me you could look at it either way, Pat, but we have not found anything that supersedes what we have been doing for 30 years, and nor has VDOT.
Correct.
And therefore, you can characterize it either way. Either there was an agreement that has now been totally established and has precedent that the town does this. And we're not the only town, by the way, that does it. This is not just Clifton. Or we can look at the other laws that our attorneys are looking at as well. But it's a legal question, and it's one that we need to protect the organizations in our town. And however you want to characterize it, we can characterize it, but we need to clarify this with VDOT so that we can protect the organizations in this town.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that this policy has been on VDOT's website for a decade. Whether they've enforced it or not is a different story. But just taking the position they have no regulation over their own jurisdiction, I think is a false proposition.
I just don't know whether it is their jurisdiction. I'm not claiming to know that. I'm saying we need the attorneys to establish this once we establish with them that a precedent has been established for the last 3 decades.
I mean, our VDOT's process is part of the legislative process. Are they a process, or are they actually law? And I think that's what we're talking about. We actually have a law, and is there a process? And you said that our law doesn't supersede, but if it's a process, maybe it does. I mean, Vienna, Herndon, they hang banners. They don't submit a permit either. I assume they have this in their code also. So I think what we're saying here is, rather than just submit an application, that we have to go forward and pursue, what our rights are as a town, and the precedents that we've had, that we believe those rights are, that we followed our own process, rather than just submit.
Yep.
All right.
And if you look at the permit application that they sent, it's pretty difficult to figure out how we would even apply for a banner over Main Street with the permit application they provided. So maybe they sent the wrong application, but looking at that application, it occurred to me as though they found an application that maybe fits the scenario and sent it over to us at the request of a concerned citizen, as opposed to, hey, this is a normal process and this is the normal form you fill out for that process. That's how it occurred to me. I'm not making any accusations, but that's how it occurred to me when it happened. And that makes sense because they've never attempted to enforce this authority in over 3 decades. So it makes sense that they wouldn't have an application form ready for it.
Yeah, but just, I've read the VDOT banner policy, which is on their website, which I assume everybody else has read. Like I said, that's been there 10 years, stating that permission from VDOT is necessary because it's their jurisdiction. It's a state maintained road. So I think in the end, VDOT does have a say in this, but I appreciate the fact that we do need to work as a town to work it out with VDOT so we don't get restricted from what we're doing. So I think we're all in agreement on that.
I think what we're really after is, now that we've been called on it, obviously we weren't aware of this policy, or we wouldn't have, actively acted in defiance of it. Nobody was aware of it. But the fact is it existed and it's now applicable. We should press to have a blanket permit such that there's, authorities that are granted to the town to approve banners going forward of a certain dimension and a certain height. I don't even know if we meet the 21 feet off pavement. That's a requirement. Maybe we do, but there's certain parameters in there that anybody that wants to put something in the VDOT right of way has to abide by. So it would seem to me that we just need to go there and try to work it out at a low level. We recently spent $20,000 plus to have somebody move a 10 by 10 shed across their yard. I don't think that we need to go into another legal fight and spend, thousands of dollars on attorneys to try to fight back VDOT on something as, simple as hanging a banner up for a pancake breakfast. So I hope that we could, with the knowledge that we have now, take a step back and sort this thing out. I also think that we should have submitted a permit application immediately when we found out about it, which was actually prior to the previous meeting, to show our willingness to comply.
Well, but Reagan, the problem with that is that you're assuming that we had to do that in the first place. I don't know that that's true. And that's one of the primary issues. If you say that we apparently didn't know that this was a requirement, you also have to say that they apparently didn't know it was a requirement because they haven't imposed that requirement for 3 decades.
And
There's an open question here in both directions. And I agree with you. We ought to get it clarified.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's possibly, similar to other things in zoning that are, enforced on a complaint basis rather than an active enforcement basis. And it sounds like that's what happened in this case, that it was never on their radar until somebody raised it, and then we got the letter as a result of that.
This is why we can't have nice things. In other words, I think it's entirely possible that the language we have in our code is essentially us complying with VDOT. I think that's why we need the attorneys to look at it. I agree with Steve that it should be evaluated and ensure that by us having a banner policy, it meets VDOT's requirements as long as our policy meets with their banner requirements. And if so that's why I say we shouldn't have filed the application. We shouldn't have just acquiesced to their request, because that then establishes a precedent for every request going forward.
And is VDOT even aware of our law and our code? Because they may not be either.
At some point in time, it may have been, hey, VDOT's requiring that you put something in your code about banners over Main Street if you want to do it. I don't know. I haven't looked at the minutes from the meeting, the very first meeting where a banner was hung, or when the banner policy was written into the code. But it's possible that that's why we even have language in there in the first place, so that we can approve banners and that people don't have to go through VDOT. So I think it's worth understanding the history and getting the context around our banner policy, and why it exists and whether or not it meets VDOT's requirements.
So do we want to have a motion to either pursue conversation with VDOT, not submit the application, or submit an application? I think we need to have something actionable.
Yeah, Melissa, I would make a motion that we contact VDOT and suggest that VDOT have a meeting with us regarding this issue to explore what indeed the requirements are between the town and VDOT for the hanging of signs, and to determine whether they are suggesting that the precedent of the 3-decade precedent they are now trying to change. If they're not trying to change it, that's the end of the issue. If they are trying to change it, then we have legal issues that we can go into next. I'm in agreement with everybody that we don't want to go into a legal fight. That's not the point. The point is to get this off the table by finding out how this happened in the first place. It's entirely possible that somebody didn't know that we had a code provision that had been approved by VDOT 3 decades ago. It's entirely possible that that's the problem, as opposed to the other way around, that we didn't know that we were supposed to file a license. So I make a motion that we establish a meeting between the appropriate parties in Clifton, and that may be the mayor, that may be our town attorney, and appropriate members of VDOT to discuss and determine the status of this issue. I further would have that motion state that we not file a license application at this time until we determine those facts.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Discussion.
So since we don't have a banner presently hanging, what is the purpose in the motion to not submit a permit? We no longer need to submit a permit.
Well, I think we're going to have a second discussion right after this about what we're going to do about the banner, whether we're going to replace the banner and have it be for a period of the existing, whatever that period was. It was up in the 60 days that we had approved. So I think that's on the table to discuss next.
I think it's a belt and suspenders, Pat.
So maybe we should table this until we find out how the second motion passes.
Well, I think we have to pursue this regardless.
Excuse me.
Because it's about every banner that gets.
No, I'm not done speaking.
Sorry about that.
If you could keep it quiet for a while, appreciate it. Relating to Steve's first thing too is that this doesn't require a motion. It's an administrative issue. There's no legislation to pass. So this first motion literally is an administration issue.
Are you done?
I'd need some clarification on that, Pat.
What
instructions that are given to the mayor or the town council members or our staff are always run through the town council. You may not have been familiar with that because you're new to the town council, but you are calling something an administrative act that the rest of us have run through the town council for approval virtually on every other action we take.
So can you explain to me, Steve, what legislation this motion carries? The town council handles legislation, not administration. So what legislation are you proposing?
I beg to differ with you, Pat. In Clifton, a lot of the administration of the town is done by members of the town council and the mayor, and approvals and our staff. And approvals for those actions, not legislation. We do a whole lot of things that are not legislation. For instance, we approve banners. That's not legislation, but it has to go before the town council. We approve ARB petitions. You went through this. You know that the town had to approve your petitions and your applications. Those are administrative actions. They're not legislation, but the town approves them all. So I'm confused, since you've gone through this process yourself, that you're now suggesting that the only thing that the town does in a motion is non-administrative stuff. That's not true in this town.
Well, if you could show me in the charter and show me in our ordinance where the town council votes on administrative issues. And to your example about ARB applications or planning commission, that is application of somebody's request to our ordinance.
Right.
So I would think that would require a council person's review, but just getting a permit, talking to VDOT does not require council decisions.
We respectfully disagree.
Okay.
To the actual substance of the matter, we've got a letter from VDOT telling us to do something by the 28th of July. We can do nothing. We can apply for an application, or we can take door number 3 and do something else. And what the council's discussing here is being clear that we do not want to submit the land use permit for a lot of reasons. A, we don't know even how to fill it out based on what's in the form they sent us. And B, we don't want to set a precedent, and perhaps C is there in the banner to apply for anyway. So lots of reasons why we don't want to submit an application. However, a clear understanding that this potential requirement has implications for many, many other groups. Ironically, not for this one, not the instant issue, because as Steve points out, by the time VDOT gets around to doing anything, the latest time, August 10th, would be passed, but rather the CBA, the Lions Club, all these other groups would be affected. And we could do nothing and pretend it didn't happen. That's certainly a thing we can do. Or we could hire lawyers and go toe to toe on what the law is. And I've heard some interesting things and seen some interesting things on the law. Or we could try to reach some resolution with VDOT that says, are you guys okay with us doing what we're doing? And VDOT goes, okay. And we don't have to have winners and losers. We just agree on what will be the case here. And it's not a test case for every town in the Commonwealth or every location in the town. It's these types of banners in this location, in this town. And if VDOT says we're okay with that, you know, great. So we can move on, but we know everybody's covered and we're taking care of this issue proactively so it doesn't become an issue for everybody else. And so because to me, that's a clear policy question of how we want to proceed on that. Steve has proposed that we A, not file a land use permit application with the form they have, and B, actually reach out to VDOT and engage with them to reach resolution of this issue as a general matter. So that's what Steve's proposed. Pat, to your back to you, question, do you have issues with those concepts? I understand you're concerned about the council and the types of actions it's taking, but on those two issues, any concerns? And you don't have to speak to it at all. I just wanted to see if you had any issues.
I think talking with VDOT is a great idea. You've already started talking to VDOT. Today, you've already discussed with them the application of this. That didn't require council action. I just think it's something we just do. It doesn't require council meetings to decide to do it. But to answer your question, Bill, no, I have no objection to it.
Okay, I appreciate that. From my own perspective, it's very helpful to me, if I'm the one who's the point person doing it, that I know that the issue's been vetted, it's out on the table, we've discussed it, and the council's thought about it, and then whoever's bringing the issue forth can say, you know, the council's addressed this and the council's on board and supports it. So it's certainly beneficial for the person carrying it forward to implement it.
And Bill, to that point, I appreciate you reaching out, getting the citizens' opinions, getting the council's opinions. In my opinion, you don't need to do that. I'm very glad that you do that, and I really appreciate it. It's just the last piece of it on having it a council decision is my only complaint.
And I appreciate that, Pat. You're saying, look, you don't really need to do this. And if we do this, it's an unnecessary step. I'm not sure it's even valid. You know, you might be thinking, but I get what you're doing to get comfort in what you're doing. I don't think it's technically required. So fair enough.
All right.
So Steve, as a motion that we speak to VDOT to work on resolution of this issue as a general matter, and that we not file an application on the land use permit form. Any further discussion before we vote? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Holloway, aye.
F. Ross, aye.
Milne, aye.
McDonald, aye.
Oh, aye.
Line, aye.
Okay, Steve, you had started the ball rolling on your, what you called issue 1.
Okay,
And you don't need to keep going. I'm just offering you the
Well-
opportunity.
yeah, I may as well tee this one up as well. Unless somebody else wants to. Melissa, you want to, or you want me to?
No, you go ahead.
I agree with a lot of the statements that were made by the people who spoke earlier. I think it is reprehensible that the sign was torn down. I think we have made it very clear that this was a value statement, and it's an important value statement at this time. It is unique. I do not think that we're going to have a lot of these. I think that we are in a transformational time, and I think everybody understands that. And we are part of that transformation. The point about what we do now that somebody has illegally torn down this sign is more difficult. Let me start by saying I would vote to have a new identical banner put up for the given time, including the time that has been lost. Okay. However, I question whether that's the most effective thing to do. I also agree with people who say you've got to send a message that we can't accept intimidation. And, you know, John Lewis was the one who said, when you see something that's not right, say something and do something. And we've already said something. We said, you know, welcome to Clifton where Black Lives Matter. That triggered off some really good stuff. We have a racial justice working group right now that is extremely active. I mean, in a very short period of time, it's extremely active, and it has a lot of very exciting things on its agenda, including a sensitivity of what we all need to learn about racism and a lot of other things. So I would suggest that playing the game of allowing people to divert the transformational issue by calling us Marxists or communists, or that we're linked with an organization that is bad. I mean, let's remember FDR and Martin Luther King and John Lewis were all accused of being Marxists and communists. So we're in pretty good company at this point. It isn't that we are associated with the SCLC or SNCC, or indeed Black Lives Matter LLC. It's that we had a value statement. And I think it may be, I want to put up a sign. I want to replace the sign because I do not think that we can accept intimidation. But I think the folks who tore down that sign have inadvertently given us the opportunity to expand on what we were doing. We would not normally put up signs like this, except at a time like this. And I would suggest that it might be more effective to expand on what we have done and move forward. And I think that's what the Racial Justice Working Group is doing. And I would be perfectly happy with a sign, and I would say 30 days. I would say that we get a new sign. First, we have to fix the mechanism and all of that stuff. But put up a new sign that said Clifton is committed to racial justice, which is the underlying value statement, and eliminates the ability of those who want to just divert attention by calling us communists or Marxist, or there's going to be violence in town and all of that stuff. That all gets eliminated, and we focus on what we're trying to do, which is promoting racial justice. And so I think that's the value statement. I think we could do that. I think we should expand the time that the sign is up to let people know that if you tear our value statements down, we're going to put them up longer. So don't play this game with us. But at the same time, make a value statement that avoids giving them the opportunity to divert the issue from racial justice. That's what I would propose.
Discussion?
Boy, I really did it
Do you
all
have-
for you guys this time, huh?
Well,
Yeah.
I'll go. Yeah, go ahead, please.
I was going to ask Steve if he had a motion, or if he's if you're just done with your remarks for now.
I'd be willing to make it into a motion. I'd ask the mayor whether he wants me to do that.
Not
immediately.
yet, not yet. I'd
Okay.
rather we had some discussion and
Okay.
aired it. And once there's some gelling of where we're headed, then perhaps a motion would be appropriate.
Okay.
So discussion.
So I'll go. You know, I think, Steve, that's a great proposition. I would fully support that. My whole viewpoint of this banner to date is the fact that, you know, our focus should be on the well-being of this town. And I think we can all agree that hanging this banner has been incredibly divisive for this town. And I'm not going to jump on the socialist, Marxist, racist bandwagon people want to label everybody about. I think that's just a bunch of crap. I like Steve's message. I think that's everybody that I've seen. I'm not on social media, but I've talked to a lot of people. Everybody is uniform in the fact that it's the message. It's not the 3 words that trigger people to do all kinds of things. So for me, for view of this town, the care of this town, and to show the community that we care, I do believe in what Steve just said, and I appreciate the words he says. Thanks.
So just to clarify, you'd be supportive of putting up a banner like that?
I would.
I certainly, Pat, recognize that the issue itself has divided some, but it's also been very unifying as well. It's been inspiring just to see some of the feedback that's come in and the work that we've done on the Racial Justice Working Group. It's been, so while it has certainly upset some folks and has caused some difficult conversations to take place, it's unified in other ways. So I think those 3 words they have power, and that's why the organization chose them as their moniker, because they're powerful and they make an impact, and they send a very direct and specific statement to a community that needs to hear it, which is why I supported them being in the initial composition, but not as a noun, as an adjective to describe the town as opposed to an organization. So that, you know, I don't think it's right for the town to necessarily affiliate with an organization, which is not to say that if a motion is put forward with the language Steve suggested, that I wouldn't support it. But I think it's worth noting that those words right now they're impactful, and it's important that organizations that are not associated with things like Marxism use those words so that they're not apprehended and misappropriated or reappropriated by organizations that want to do harm with them.
I'd say a couple things here. One, what Steve has proposed and Pat has endorsed would be clarificational to the extent that anyone has any misunderstandings of the message we were sending. And all these people that said you support defunding the police. And I mean, I've gotten endless hate emails that are ridiculous and over the top, that whoever ripped the sign down, stole it, perhaps inadvertently gave us an opportunity to clarify and make very clear what we're talking about. And to actually put together, if you put the 2 signs together, it says, welcome to Clifton, where Black Lives Matter, is equivalent with being committed to racial justice. So that's actually a good thing. So there is that opportunity. I would say this, and it's following on something we did. It's clarifying what we did. It would be 30 days. But when that 30 days is done, assuming we do it, I would think long and hard about putting up we support stray animals or neutering dogs or whatever. Not that this is like that, but rather I don't want to be in the value statement business as a town. So this is important, and this would, if you will, tie the bow on that. But I don't want to necessarily go down the path of what's the next value statement that we're going to put up, because we will end up with lots of additional issues and arguments and everything else. So
I think those requests are going to come, Bill, whether we want them to or not.
Oh,
I think they will,
yes.
if they haven't come yet. And I think this council is certainly capable of evaluating which ones have merit and which ones don't.
Oh, but the point I'm making is I would like this council to understand that we're not getting into the value statement business, that this is very specific. Yeah, I've had
Yep.
MAGA 2020. We got to put that up. All Lives Matter is a long list, as you know. And I don't even want to, I don't want to be sifting through those. This one's okay, that one's not okay, but rather that's not the business we're in. This is a unique moment in time. This is very important. We want to do something that's way outside of our zone of what we usually do because of the uniqueness of this. But when this is done, it's not just one of many, many, many things. And we're in again, the value statement business. That's my thought. That's my thought. I don't know how everybody else feels about it. But I want to be careful on that.
Bill, if I can respond to that, I'm 100% with you on that. And I think it's relatively easy to distinguish what has happened here and why we did what we did from virtually anything else. I'm willing to say the next time there is an issue or a value that results in over 20 million people getting onto the streets and over 2,000 demonstrations in 2,000 other communities, large and small, then we have to start taking a look at what our value is on that issue too. But until that happens, that's not what we're trying to do. We were responding to a very unique situation. We're going to clarify how we responded to that, or I would like to clarify how we respond to that. But no, the term unique has meaning, and this is unique.
Yes, and as you said, this one is not only unique, but very unique, which is even better. Other thoughts?
Well, Bill, I would reiterate that I don't think it's the town's position to advocate or oppose, issues. This one came along. Certain individuals are deeply tuned into it where others were not. It kind of blindsided me, I think, with the first meeting that we had was less than a 24-hour spin-up period of, what is this and what are we talking about, and trying to research the message that we put up and tried to steer this at that point, realizing it was probably a foregone conclusion that the town was going to do something into a message that was less controversial, was something that would predictably result in people who love it and people who hate it. And that probably exceeded my expectation with the amount of back and forth that caused on social media and, just in daily conversation. And as to Pat's point, I don't know that that's productive for the town. Certainly provoked conversations about the banner. I don't know if it provoked conversations about the issue. But shifting focus to the committee that's in place would certainly be, the next step and the best energy spent at this point. I think we'll need to get through this whole permission thing and where our authorities lie with future banners. And if there is a future one that goes up that says we support racial justice, please join us at whatever our website.com is going to be, where all of these efforts could be advertised and gain support for, et cetera. Maybe that's the next step. But we narrowly missed passing a resolution for the Paris Climate Accords a couple of years ago. That was similar to this in my eyes. It was just an idea that somebody was very, very passionate about. The town doesn't even own a car. So it's pretty tough to take a stand on that. Certainly the issue at hand today is probably much more germane. But do we call for the resignation of the governor? Do we take a position on the name of Washington's football team? Do we go into any number of other issues? It's just a slippery slope. But this one's over and done with. I mean, we did it. The banner was up for, well, I guess if you believe VDOT, longer than VDOT would have allowed. So it was up, I think, 5 weeks versus the 30 days that we may have had to apply for. But we'll get through what our authorities are on that. But I guess I kind of lean toward compliance rather than trying to defy VDOT, so that we do have a chance at coming to a resolution and getting back authorities that we certainly want to be able to exercise as a town, in the VDOT right of way, if it turns out that they prevail and they do have that authority.
Is that sort of a no, I'm not on board with a new banner, or I might be sometime down the road after VDOT says it's okay to have banners, or I am in favor?
I think it would, going back to the one that we had that divided the community, and folks say it says this, other folks say it doesn't. Well, there's the website, there's the movement, there's the message. I wouldn't be in favor in going back to what we had. If there's a next step, that we would try to bring attention to what's going on, what the new initiatives in town are, if that's something that we think needs to happen. And maybe that is advertising an event, which we do have banners that advertise events, that we get back to pointing to something that people can actively participate in or go to, or it's a way to get more information about what's going on in terms of what the town is undertaking as initiatives. But I don't think going back to the other one, I mean, it's a winners and losers thing, right? We wanted to banner up, we put a banner up, we won, now it's down, now we lost. The people that didn't like it think they won because it's down, and we've got to take the next step to win to get it back up, and then for how long? And I think we just should take the next step and go from here.
With no banner.
No banner at the current time until we sort out the issue with VDOT and whether we even have authority to do that. And then getting authority back so that we can do it when we need to. And in the future, if there's a banner with a message that's pertinent to this, we should consider it.
Yeah, I mean, that is a possibility, which is you could put something like this up after VDOT, after we've crossed our bridge with VDOT and they're okay with it, whether that's because they agree that we've done it for 30 years and it's not a problem, or they give us blanket approval, or whatever it is, and that would be a threshold gating issue for timing.
Yeah, and the next step, if we're raising money for minority scholarships and we want to put that up and we get donations because people see that and it points them to some place to participate, that's fantastic. If we figure out a way to raise money for the Primitive Baptist Church and that becomes an effort, it seemed like the timing is perfect. It needs a roof and it needs paint right now, today. And I don't know if we're leveraging the current situation to help things that would actually further that. And, that could become a field trip for elementary and middle school kids to come here and learn about the town and learn about, why that church is there and what it means, and things like that to think through. And maybe the committee has already taken all of this stuff on, but taking the next step and seeing where we can go from here would seem to be a lot more productive than going back to what we had that was predictably controversial.
You're the guy who deals with VDOT all the time. Streetscape, the motorcycle ride quietly signs. I think you're pursuing permits for that.
We're actually engaged with the same people that sent us the letter to get the approval.
And the paving that's going on. We're going to have, like you just talked about, we could have a visit the Primitive Baptist Church, fund the Primitive Baptist Church. Lots of good things we could do. Do we run the risk, if we preemptively put something up right away, of poking VDOT in the eye before we talk to them, in your view?
In my view, I don't think that's the way to win the long game. You could win the next, you could win the next move and preempt that. But if the long game is to have the authority in the town to be able to put all of our banners up there, in perpetuity, I don't think winning the battle and losing the war would be a good move for the town.
Are you
Well,
suggesting, if I can clarify, you're suggesting that if we were to go ahead and put up another banner without filing a permit application and without resolving whatever dispute exists between us and VDOT, that we would ultimately never have authority to put banners up again? Is that what you think would happen, Reagan?
I think there's a risk of that based on what we know today with the policy that's already published, from VDOT. So
I'd agree.
compliance over defiance would be the side that I err on.
And I'd agree that whatever that risk is, you would certainly be calling VDOT's bluff and putting them in a bad position if we did yet another one without even consulting with them. So if we decide, let's put this banner up, it's a great idea. This sends the right message. Does it have to be today, tomorrow, this week, in the next 10 days? Or should we try to get VDOT on board and comfortable so when it goes up, they're not surprised and they're actually supportive of it and they're okay with it? Reagan's right, there is a risk. I don't know what the risk is, but with everything we've got going on with VDOT, if we really want to create a situation with them, we probably want to think about it before we do it. We might ultimately say, I don't care. I don't care what VDOT thinks, if they like it or they don't. We've got good and valid reasons, banner policy and all that. I hear you. The question would really be if we want to put up this new banner, and there will be other banners, support the Primitive Baptist Church, minority scholarships, whatever they are. And a good idea that we at least make sure that we've got all that straightened away before we perhaps dig the hole any deeper. I think that's what Reagan's saying.
I get that. My concern. Oh, I'm sorry, Melissa. I've talked a lot. Go ahead.
Yeah, Melissa, go ahead.
I mean, the discussion we're having right now, if it hadn't been vandalized and it hadn't been stolen, this wouldn't even be part of the discussion tonight. The agenda was about the permit process and what we were going to do about that. So I'm not saying I disagree with what you're saying, Reagan, because it is down now, but that it wasn't part of the discussion, and so now would we have been poking them by leaving it up during the period while we were waiting to solve this with them, till July 28th? I mean, we would have. We weren't going to lower it until we had resolved that it was going to hang up there, and we approved that. And so now we're having the discussion because literally somebody stole it.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to go back and war game, what would have happened then? My position on that would be, if it's it's a moot point, but it would have been A, we should immediately apply for a permit if one is required, and B, we should have done it at first knowledge of that, which was after the first or second week that it was up, just so that we show a willing compliance, because the long game is we want to get the full authority, and if it turns out that it is something that they would have to grant to us, and based on what Steve has said and other analysis might prove otherwise on what had precedent at the time with our code versus when their policy was enacted. But without knowing that, there's a risk that that we could tick people off and be in a position where we're not going to get the ultimate authorities back that we want. So my position would have been, it's up, it stays up, but put the permit in, because we now know that it's required, or at least they've called us on it, to mitigate that risk. But to show defiance, and say, I don't need to submit your stinking permit, I have all the authority. I don't think it's how a town wants to deal with a state. So
there's a middle ground there. There's a middle ground, Reagan. It's not a question of sticking your finger in VDOT's eye. Nobody is suggesting that we should stick your finger in VDOT's eye. Had we left the sign up and it had not been taken down, I think Melissa is absolutely correct that we would have left it up, and we would have talked to VDOT, because we don't think they are correct in the requirement that we have to have a license. And we want to have a civil discussion, not sticking any fingers in anybody's eyes, not war gaming anybody. I mean, this is not a battle. This is Let's find out what the correct thing is. But in the meantime, I think Melissa is right, and it has already been mentioned. The sign is down. We can't put it up right now anyway, right? Even if we had it, we couldn't put it up because the structure isn't there. So we have an open question. Further, this issue, the transformational issue we're talking about, and the value statement that was so important for a lot of us to make with regard to Clifton, and is important to continue to make, and is important for the Racial Justice Working Group, which is doing some fabulous work right now. I've heard what they're doing, is ongoing. We have to look forward, not backward. And having a fight with the people who didn't like specific language is a waste of our time. That's, to me, we are being diverted into an issue that we don't need to be diverted into. What we need to do is deal with racial justice. What we need to do is learn more about it. What we need to do is learn more about our town and how Black lives in this town really, really did matter, because they started it, okay? What we need to do is look at the signs on all of our houses, which seems to have left that history out. That's called systemic racism. It's not intentional, but it's systemic, because somehow history left out that convenient part. So all of those things are the things we should focus on now. And if it takes 2 weeks to talk to VDOT and get this straightened out, or if it takes 3 weeks to talk to VDOT, that's fine. It's going to take a couple of weeks to get a sign made, or a period of time to get a sign made that says Clifton is committed to racial justice. That'll take time too, and it can be put up. The point of putting up a sign like that again, a value statement again, for me, and this is why I made the point in the first place, is that we cannot accept intimidation. I don't want to have a pissing contest with these people, but I'm not going to accept intimidation either. And it's not about the language for me. It's about, you can't start tearing down our signs. And we're going to put another sign up. And you've given us the opportunity not only to put up our value statement again, but put it up for a longer period of time than it would have been otherwise. Thank you very much. If you want to play the game, we'll keep talking about our value statements. And that's what I think is important. And that's what I'm proposing.
I think we actually have a motion that you made, Steve, and a second by Daryl. Are we gonna?
We already approved the first motion.
No. I mean, the second, didn't you make a motion about?
Bill asked me not to make a motion until we had this discussion. I am more than ready to make a motion.
Yeah, and it sounds like from what I hear that everybody is supportive of the concept of a banner saying what you said. Clifton is committed to racial justice, and it's a great idea on many levels because it moves us ahead. We started in a certain place. This moves us forward, and it ties into the other things that are going on. And how on earth anybody could take that and say you're Marxist or something? I just don't think there's any there. So I think people like it. And the question is, should we provide a little period of time to work with VDOT before we, proudly fly this new banner, recognizing that you can't make it overnight, and you got to get the mechanism fixed anyway. So should the motion say, we'll allow X period of time before it goes up to speak to VDOT, but the world will know that we're going to do this. And then there would have to be the allocation of another $500.
Well, I've got pricing on that, so it won't be that high.
Oh, cool. Okay, that's better. And people who've said they want to provide money to help, which is also good, but we shouldn't be assuming that. So really, it's just a question of straight up put up this banner, or the motion would include allowing some period of time to talk to VDOT about resolving the issue before it goes up. So
how much time do we think that'll take?
we don't know at this point. But if we provide several weeks at the very least, it won't be a surprise. And it will be very clear to them, you know, that this is coming and what's going on, and we'll have the opportunity to have the discussion. We already said we do under Steve's first motion, and get the banner policy collected up and get it out to them, and perhaps set up a meeting. The only thing, heaven forbid, is if VDOT knows that we're planning to put up another banner, and we send them the banner policy and all that, and for some reason, I don't know what it would be, but for some reason VDOT takes a hard line and says, we don't want you to put another banner up till this is resolved, full stop. If you do, we're going to do X, Y, Z. Then I'll probably have to call yet another special meeting to go through that. Because if we have a clear direction from VDOT, thou shalt not, thou art violating law, I won't be comfortable in us continuing to do it. Right now, what we have is a please apply, and you know, everything's not so clear, but it is possible that in that period of time that we talk to VDOT, that things might change their tenor. So one way to do it is, when VDOT said they're okay with us doing it, it'll go up. The other one is after X weeks, it'll go up. The other one is no later than within X weeks and no later than our September meeting, it'll go up. It would really be great if we put this up that there's not a cloud over it, in my mind, because you want to be able to fly it proud. The reason to do it sooner rather than later is the no intimidation. Nobody's going to tell us what to do. You're not taking our sign. We're going to act. So I get the idea of moving sooner rather than later.
Yeah, we're not condoning criminal vandalism.
Exactly, and not kneeling to it, and not cowed by it. On the other hand, it'd be great if we put it up and there's no cloud over it whatsoever, because I hear everybody saying I like the idea, but for this one thing. So I don't know how to finesse all that together. Steve, you might have an idea.
What if you make a motion, you know, based on resolution with VDOT, that we're going to hang the banner that says X for a period of time of this, so that we don't have to meet again, that we're literally resolving this with VDOT and that we already have approval. But I think a second part to that is we also right now need to approve funds, because I'm not sure that, you know, the mechanism is rescuable at this point. We may need to make an insurance claim. I talked to our agent today about that. Certainly, you know, it's vandalism and it's covered. So the theft of the property of the banner itself would be covered, and that cost was nearly, you know, $500. And then the mechanism itself, best I can tell, is somewhere in between a range of maybe $1,000 to $2,000 if it has to be replaced, and it may be greater. So those, and you're right, we couldn't hang it today even if we approve it, because we don't have a mechanism to do that or a banner.
That's right.
But I just think that in this resolution, as you just said, let's wrap it all up together. So we have funds approved, raising the banner approved, and if we are going to wait on, you know, resolution with VDOT, so that that's all taken care of and we know what the plan is going forward.
Hey, Melissa, just what's the deductible on the insurance? Because the hanger maybe is $200.
Oh, okay. Well, I was talking to a company today, and it was more in the realm of about $1,000 to $1,500. So the deductible is $1,000, and we would not have any impact to our cost going forward if we did make a claim. They were very clear about that today, because we have made no claims. We have an absolute, you know, top line history with our insurance company. So highly encouraged us, you know, if our cost is going to exceed that we should file this claim.
Yeah, I just don't think it's going to exceed our deductible at the end of the day. Just want to make that point.
Well, I think we might want to approve the money. Of course, we never spend money that's been approved until we have, you know, an estimate and feel confident in that. But to have to come back in August or September again. Let's approve an amount up to, or approve going through the insurance. At least we need this mechanism no matter what we do here, because, if we are going to have a Clifton Day, if the film festival can go off based on COVID, I mean, we've got to get that thing up there and working again.
Yeah.
So let's get the funds in place for that too.
Yep.
So I think we're at a point we probably need to get some things on the agenda for the next meeting, whether it's a special meeting or whether it's the next scheduled council meeting. We've gone probably off the reservation on our current agenda. And I am getting some feedback through my phone that folks think that there needs to be public comment on some of the things on our next steps before we.
It's funny that Reagan mentions that. All of this is good, right? But it's true that we don't have on our agenda for this special meeting, which is very specific about how to respond to VDOT and when to take down the existing banner. I hadn't really thought about this, but we don't have put up a new banner saying, well, let me get the words, Clifton is committed to racial justice, which seems like a really cool idea. But it's true that anybody who had read the agenda would have no idea that we were planning on putting up a new banner. I wonder if, particularly with the timing we're talking about, that we shouldn't let Pat work on his mechanism. Let Jim Chesley, who's offered two parts. Jim said Novak doesn't want anybody on the pole sticking a thing back up there without the appropriate safety equipment, and Novak would in fact provide the appropriate safety equipment, bucket, truck, etc. So that's awesome. We get Pat to work on repairing the mechanism as needed. We get Jim and Pat to work on putting the mechanism up, and we actually have a meeting coming up in less than 2 weeks. So we could actually have that prominently on the agenda about putting up this new banner, get all the input in the world at a regularly scheduled meeting, and not lose any time with regard to doing it, and not run the risk that somebody says, I had no idea, which honestly, they would have no idea because we just came up with it here. Not that it's not a good idea, but we wouldn't run the risk of people complaining that they didn't know and everything's done in the secret of the night through a special meeting or whatever. There's actually real benefit in doing that given the timing. And, now that we've vetted it as a council and all the things that are included in doing so, I think it probably is very, very helpful to do it through that channel. No one can ever contest that it wasn't clearly advertised and noticed, and they had all the opportunity in the world to talk about it. And I don't think we lose any time either. So I don't know why I hadn't thought about that, but Reagan, thanks for that. Anybody can comment on that, but that was just my reaction to Reagan saying that. I was like, dude, we don't have put up new banner on here. So whether good or bad, and this is a special meeting where there's this one thing.
Yeah, I'd like, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Steve.
I totally agree with Bill that we should do this right. I'm going to sound like Pat Klein here and say, wait a minute, we don't even have to vote on this because it isn't a votable issue.
You're converted, Steve. I already got you.
I'm just going to announce now that I am requesting the mayor to put on the agenda a proposal to hang a sign in response to the one that was torn down, that sign would say something to the effect of Clifton is committed to racial justice, and that sign be put up for a minimum of 30 days following resolution with VDOT over the issues of how we put up the signs. And that should be on the agenda for next week or 2 weeks from now. And I can assure you that I will vote in favor of that.
Thank you. I think it's very good. Okay.
I don't like it, but I'll comply.
Well, I mean, I don't like it either because the only reason that this is in discussion and not on the agenda is because it was written down.
After the agenda
We're
was
gonna have
formed.
to wait until the beginning of August on something that was already approved and that we're only talking about replacing now because the wording's changed. I do hear you, Bill, on that. So perhaps it does have to be weighed in, but to just simply tonight, if we did order the exact same wording that we had approved and hang it back up, we're in the same place we were before, albeit it may take us a week to get the mechanism fixed and to get a new banner. But that was already approved. We're only doing what was existing in there.
Yeah, but
And if we
Melissa,
want to change the language, then we're going to have to wait. I agree.
Melissa, I don't think it's just an issue of changing the language. I think it is an issue that we, as an administrative body or as a political body, have to work with other political bodies. And
Oh, no, I agree with
there
that.
is a difference of opinion on whether they have an authority over us or we have an authority over our own town signs. That has to be resolved. And there is, I totally agree, and I know that Daryl also feels strongly, I suspect, that we should be responding to the vandalism as fast as we possibly can. But frankly, I'm looking at the, as Reagan said, I'm looking at the long game here, but I'm not looking at the long game administratively or with other agencies. I'm looking at the long game of what we're trying to do. And what we're trying to do, it isn't going to make a damn bit of difference whether it's 10 days from now or not. And so why don't we do it so that nobody can attack us for not doing it right?
I'm not saying we shouldn't. I agreed with waiting to have resolution with VDOT. The only difference I'm saying is I'm not sure that we have to approve a banner that's already been approved and wait to another meeting to do that because it was already approved. But if we change the language, then I agree. It does need to go back through another vote. But I do agree, we need to go back to VDOT in between right now. And the only difference would be that we were approving the banner tonight. And so it's fine. We'll do that at the meeting in August because the language is changing. But if the language wasn't changing, I think we could approve it tonight based on resolution with VDOT.
The
we already have
the time is also changing. We're going to extend, or I will propose that we significantly extend the time that our value statement is up. Otherwise, it would have been down roughly 10 days after our meeting anyway. So we would be spending a lot of money, a lot of effort for a sign that would have only been up for 10 days. I think we need to say this long and hard and loud for a long time, and this helps us do that.
So let me just clarify then what I think I heard Bill say about Pat fixing or trying to attempt to fix the existing mechanism. So in that case, we're going to give at least until our August 4th meeting to see if that's possible. Is that what I'm hearing? So that we don't determine right now, any kind of cost approval either. And we delay, getting that started until our next meeting as far as, needing to order. So if Pat finds out 2 or 3 days from now it's not fixable, we will not be able to move forward with ordering a new, just the system itself, if we do not approve some mechanism either through insurance or funding, if he's not able to do that. And that'll wait till August, and then who knows how long it'll take, to order it and get it going.
Oh, let me speak to that. I mean, literally, I'll repair it. I'll pay for it. The town decides to reimburse me for the couple $100 in parts, so be it. I don't care. It's literally a pole with some hooks on it. So, I'll
What
take
about hoisting the, because it has like
a couple pulleys, literally a couple pulleys and a pole.
But you got it, is the idea. You'll take care of it.
Yep.
And, if there's money to be reimbursed and you get reimbursed, that will be awesome. If not, you'll get on with your life.
Yep.
Either way, you're going to take care of it.
I'm going to take care of it. If you've ever hung a banner in this town, that what was up there had some serious flaws to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I really want to think about this. There's a better way of doing it. I'll work with Jim to get it done and get it built. But yeah, simply stated, it literally is just a long pole with some hooks on it.
Okay, it's in your capable hands. And I know Jim Chesley is committed and has volunteered to bring resources of Novak to bear on doing it right, which I think is good as well. So, and I appreciate Melissa wanting to make sure that the road's plowed and there aren't any impediments, and Pat stepping up and saying, you know what, I'll take care of it. I hear you. So there's a plan to move forward, and the plan will take care of anybody complaining, because people always complain. Anybody complaining they didn't know, they didn't hear about it, they didn't have an opportunity to comment, it's done secretly or whatever. We'll give everybody an opportunity, and we'll do the same thing where people will register in advance if they wish to speak, and we'll hear people talk about whether they like it or don't like it, or what they think. And then we'll act on it. It sounds like everybody's in favor, but you know, until we vote, we haven't voted. So we'll see at the next meeting. So that would seem to great progress, great discussion, great plan, great collegiality. I understand people have different views. I also understand emotional charged issue for many, many reasons, and frankly, not the ones you think about, but rather we got out in front of a lot of the rest of the world on an issue that people were pretty fired up about. And you know, I'm getting the emails today about what a terrible person I am. So I know about it firsthand, but we've all taken that, but we've joined hands and found a path forward that we can move forward together on, and we want to be above board. It takes a little while longer, but you know what? You turn the other cheek, and nobody can say that we, although people have treated us wrongly, treated the town wrongly, we're going to react right, in the right way. So it's a good thing, and we should all feel good about that. I appreciate the discussion of the council and the input from members of the public and citizens as well.
I have one remark, Bill. I think just a request to my fellow council members to remember to speak to each other with civility and kindness in these meetings.
Agreed, always agreed. We've strived mightily for that, and as I mentioned, this is you know, a little bit different from pancake breakfast or investing CDs. We'll have a lot of that at the next meeting. It's something people are passionate about, but I think as we evolve through the meeting, people have really worked to stay focused and professional. But that reminder, Daryl, always good, always important, because you know, that's why we work together, and we're transparent and collegial.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else for tonight? We now have our homework. We now know what we're doing. By the way, it's a long agenda. I've got what everybody wants on August 4th. Lots of stuff to do, but this will be added to the agenda as well. And the agenda will come out in the next couple of days.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, not a discussable motion in case anybody was wondering. So we move straight to vote. Holloway, aye.
F. Ross, aye.
Milne, aye.
Down aye.
Poe, aye. Klein's muted.
Everybody?
Klein's
Oh.
muted.
Sorry, Klein eye, sorry.
Very good. We're adjourned. That completes the meeting, and we'll all be talking as a group on August 4th. And of course, anytime you want to pick up the phone or send me an email, just let me know.
Likewise.
Take care. Have a great evening.
Bye.
See ya.
So.
You're muted.
Do you see an option on your screen on how to stop this stream?
Stop live stream. Yes.
Yeah, can you go ahead and do that?